Okay, that was a picture of my audience. Professor, sorry. Well, first, thank you. Welcome. Appreciate you taking the time to come out here and listen to me. I just have a short presentation here. We'll go right through it real quickly. And what I'm going to be talking about, bicycling under the influence of alcohol. What's the harm? What's the law? Well, we've all seen the laws, I think, across this country. Driving under the influence, driving an automobile. For the last, 30, 40 years, probably, at least 20, they've been coming down real hard on everybody. You've got organizations like MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, National Highway Safety Association, drunk driving campaigns. You've got stops all over during the holidays. A lot of things that 40 years ago, they really weren't doing. But today they've been really aggressive in that. But you never hear about bicycles. What about driving under the influence while you're riding a bicycle? What are the laws in Arizona? I want to talk a little bit about that, and a few other states, and the contradiction and confusion that these laws have and give people. So, and I'm really concerned too, why isn't there more emphasis on DUIs and bicycles? And we'll look at some national stats, and we'll look at maybe some individual things that we can do, and we'll sum it up and go over the bullet points again at the end, and we'll close out. I think we should all be concerned about what's going on here. And in Arizona, the law is really not ambiguous. It's very clear cut. It says that if you're caught driving under the influence, you will be taken in. If your blood alcohol content matches specific parameters within the law. Now, the caveat of the stipulation, though, is if you are driving a motorized vehicle. Bicycle, if you're pedaling, is not a motorized vehicle. So, in Arizona, Yuma, all law enforcement can do is stop you, see if you're impaired, and then they have a provision which they can or cannot invoke. It just depends upon the officer. Has to provide you safe transport to a place where you can sober up and then you can go back to you. Now that doesn't mean that you can't be convicted or charged with other crimes such as public intoxication, or if you're riding your bike and running over people or hitting something. There's other things, but you cannot be charged in a non-motorized vehicle as a bicycle with driving under the influence. And I want to take a look at some of the other states and take a look at what they do. It's kind of interesting, I think, as to what other states have to say about this. And then we'll also cover what a lawyer in Arizona says about the law. And then we'll also look at some stats, both in Arizona and nationally, concerning that. Like I pointed out earlier, we'll look at some considerations to maybe think about what we can do as individuals about this situation. So let's look at the Arizona law. What is the law? Well, as I explained to you, you cannot be charged with DUI on a bicycle unless it's motorized. And we do have motorized bicycles with engines on them, and they have motorized skateboards, and you can be charged if you're driving under the influence there. Can you be charged with riding? And that's where it comes up with the yes and no. What a lawyer has to say. This attorney, you gotta love him, Mr. Cantor, he is one of the top leading DUI and criminal defense lawyers in the state of Arizona. He specializes in those two areas. And I've listed 4 bullet points there with his certifications and some of his other accolades. It goes on and on, believe me. He's nationally certified, he's recognized. You get pulled over DUI, you're in a pickle. This is a guy you want to call. I imagine it's going to cost you. But he is the guy that has said that it's a yes or no in Arizona because of the motorized vocabulary in the statute. What about the other states? Now, I'm not going to sit here and cover 50 states and the territorials, but states treat the same offense differently. Some states treat cars and bikes equally, some don't. For instance, in South Dakota, the legislature passed a law and said it is legal to drive and operate a bicycle while you're under the influence of alcohol. In fact, they encouraged it. The reason for passing that law was to discourage people from driving an automobile. Kind of the lesser of two evils, I guess, but nonetheless, it is a problem, I think. In California, it's a little different. California, you can be pulled over for a DUI while riding a bicycle, but you cannot be charged with a DUI. It almost has the same provisions as the Arizona law, where you can be taken into a safe haven, but depending upon the extremity of your intoxication, the judge does have the leeway to impose a penalty, such as suspension of your driving license or restricting your driver's license for up to a year. At the very most, you will pay a $250 penalty or fine. Of course, it will go down on your record, and you will have it reflected there forever. In Washington State, you can be stopped but not arrested. Again, the same thing in Washington State. Washington State, actually, they mandate their law enforcement officers to take care of the drunken individual riding a bicycle. They must be transported to a safe haven, allowed to sober up, and get their bicycle back. With that in mind, let's take a look at some of the stats here. Arizona Department of Transportation in 2012 reported these bicycle statistics. About 1,700 people were injured as a result of bike crashes, 18 were killed, with 6% alcohol related. That doesn't seem like a lot of numbers. Okay? 90% of the bicycle accidents resulted in either injury or death of the bicyclist. The next one's kind of interesting because bicycle accidents account for 2% of all street-related crashes, but yet they make up 3.5% of all injury accidents, meaning they were more likely to be injured rather than having fenders around you. You're going to hit the body probably. And then the other one, kind of interesting, I thought, was contrary to popular belief, the majority of accidents occurred during daylight hours and sunny conditions. And the last one, an increase of over 200 between 1 year, the first increase in several years. We're going to come back to that as well. What can we do? Well, first of all, I think we can get a better understanding of what is impairment in a bicycle mean. And I have some references here that I'll hand out to you, and I'll also show them at the end. But there's an application on the web, on the computer, that's called What If I Drink? Now, if you go to this website, it allows you to plug in the number of drinks that you're going to have, the time over how long it's been since you've had those drinks, what you're drinking, beer, wine, shots, what state you're in, what country you're in, and then it goes to a simulation of exactly how you would operate under those conditions in an automobile or a bicycle. And you take a bicycle through cones, and you can see the higher the blood content, and of course the more difficult it gets. The other thing I think we can do is we can pass this on to anyone that wants to look at this application. I think it's pretty neat. And then also educate our kids, our grandkids, etc. So in summation, we've kind of looked at a lot of things here, and I'm going to put another slide up here. This is the national rate, and you can see here 677 fatalities with another 48,000 injured. And that 48,000, they don't expound on that, but a large majority of that 48,000 are traumatic head injuries because of lack of using a bicycle helmet. And you see it across the board from 5 years all the way up. You see it. And so these are some of the averages. And you can see there the alcohol almost lasts over the factor in over a third of all bicycle-related crashes. Majority of bicyclists killed and injured were men. And that's probably pretty aggressive. And then bicyclists age 35 to 54. And that's a demographic that has changed over the last 10 years or so. It used to be that most people riding bicycles were younger. Today, we see that it's changing. There's more older people, different ages that are looking at riding bicycles. The other thing I think we need to do is continue to update ourselves on what are these statistics, because they will affect us. There is a correlation between DUI and bike safety and the steps we can take as individuals to mitigate that. This last, there's another factor here, the amount, 48,600, when we looked at Arizona where the number had risen. Bicycling nationwide is up by 40%. And there doesn't seem to be any trend over the next decade that anybody can see that that's going to decline. In fact, it's going to continue to go up. Why is that? Well, warm weather. People are wanting to be a little more fit. And people in communities such as Yuma are petitioning their local governments to go after state, federal grants to get bike paths in. So you see this continuing to grow and grow and grow. And I don't see it changing. These are my references that I've got a paper here that I'll give you, that I've cited, and you can go look at those if you want, or share them. And I just leave you with, I think that this is going to be a growing concern as we go. In our lifetime, maybe we won't see it, but I think our grandkids, our kids, they're going to definitely see this trend continue. And my only advice is, I guess, regardless of the law in your state, one fact remains true no matter where you're at. Drinking alcohol and bicycling is a dangerous mix. No pun intended. Thank you.
Very interesting.